Thanks to everybody for attending this webinar tonight. I'm Allison. I live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina with my husband, Neil, our 6-year-old son, James, 4-year-old Naomi, and our senior dog, Hatch, who I think would rather not have me share his age tonight. Our son, James, had rapidly deteriorating eyesight starting at about around 15 or so months. And when his ophthalmologist suspected that he may have Marfan syndrome, we went for an echocardiogram, which was when he was clinically diagnosed. Genetic screening a couple of weeks later confirmed that he had Marfan syndrome, and that happened just a couple weeks shy of his 3rd birthday, so he was pretty little. When I think back to the year following James's diagnosis, it is impossible for me to overstate how incredibly sad and difficult that period was for our family. We definitely kept ourselves busy with follow-up doctor's appointments and learning as much as we could about Marfan syndrome. But whenever there was a quiet moment that Neil and I had to ourselves, we found it profoundly difficult to truly accept the diagnosis and to face the cards that our son had been dealt. It wasn't fair. Many aspects of our lives had already started to change, and we had to let go of a lot of assumptions that we had about the future. And for a number of months, I didn't really have a name for a lot of the feelings that I felt, which made it really hard to talk to other people about. But then we were guided by a friend of my husband's that suggested that what we were experiencing was grief. There are many commonalities between receiving a medical diagnosis and grief. And in fact, Jill brought up the Kubler-Ross curve, which I think is a really great illustration of that. So when you're grieving, you are coming to terms with a profound loss and you're recalibrating your life under a new set of circumstances. When we were going through the early stages of our child's diagnosis, we felt very isolated and that we felt like this acute pain that we were experiencing would never end. But I can tell you that nearly 4 years later, it doesn't really get easier, but you will get better at dealing with you or a family member's medical condition. You're going to evolve, you're going to pick up new skills and new habits. And what I was ultimately really surprised to discover after James's diagnosis is that I started to be able to see opportunities that came alongside the diagnosis and how those were impacting our family in really wonderful ways. I personally noticed that I was living more presently in the moment. I developed much more compassion for other people. I felt a very strong sense of purpose in my life. And I also got the sense that going through this together as a family made my husband and I better parents, and I hope better people too. And so I realized that for me, it was very important to channel my energy in a way that felt both healing and productive. So about 4 or 5 months after James was diagnosed, I started getting involved with the Marfan Foundation. And fundraising for the foundation has given James and our entire family the opportunity to give back and ensure that everybody with a connective tissue condition has access to support and resources. When we started meeting people with connective tissue conditions, it became incredibly clear how amazing this community is. Now, it's not without challenges and pain and fear and loss, but it is also full of love, support, and hope too. And I know I'm totally biased here, but James is such an extraordinary kid. We are very proud of him. He openly talks about his diagnosis. He loves educating other people about Marfan syndrome. At the age of 4, James traveled to Capitol Hill and visited the offices of his then representatives, where he advocated for himself and for others rare disease patients like him. Now, I know that James is only 6, and I recognize that we have hard times ahead of us, but I do strongly believe that the work we did together as a family and the experiences we went through during the early years of his diagnosis set us up not only to cope with James's condition, but also to thrive too.